Hi, I'm Jules, and let's talk about Primo because I have to. So I was really excited for the show to come out because Mike Schur was a producer in it and helped in the writers' room. So of course I have very high standards for the show, and I was really excited. Um, haven't I mentioned that I was excited? I think I should mention it again. Anyways, so I took notes every episode, and I'm going to read them out to you and explain them to you. And this is just going to be a little bit of random rambling. And if I don't make sense sometimes, please don't think about it twice. I'm trying my best here. Also, please ignore my hair. I'm going to get a haircut. It's going to get better. Hopefully, that's why I'm wearing a baseball cap. Episode 1. The first thing that I wrote down was the amount of flannels, because I noticed that Primo is wearing a lot of flannels throughout the show. By the way, I should explain what the show is about, right? Okay, so the show is about a 16-year-old boy called Primo. I think his real name is Raphael. Raphael, I think so. And he grows up with his single mother and his 5 uncles who all have very interesting and strong personalities in San Antonio. And, well, they're called the Gonzalez family because, well, their last name is Gonzalez. So, yeah. So, again, the amount of flannels. Primo's wearing flannels. He loves his flannels. I feel like he really does. Also, Uncle Rolly reminds me a lot of Jason from The Good Place. Like, they're essentially the same person. Like, they would be best friends if they would meet. Like, they're essentially the same. Also, I wrote down that in the beginning, like the especially when they're inside in the living room or something, it feels more like a multi-camera show, and not like a single camera show. Because we mostly only have that A story, and it's just very limited, and it feels more like a theater show, sort of, in a way. And I didn't really like that because sometimes I could just imagine there being a laugh track, and I don't like shows with oh god, laugh tracks in them. So yeah. Also in episode 1, we're getting introduced to the 2 storylines that are going to continue throughout the show, which is Primo's love interest in Mia. Oh god, her name is Maya. It's pronounced Maya, but it's written M epsilon A, which for some reason, like I wrote that down, and I'm thinking, okay, that's gonna be Mija or something. I don't get why her name is written that weird. That's the one storyline that's going to continue throughout the show. And then if he should go to college or not, because he can go to college and he's going to be the first person to go to college in his family. Yeah, that's yeah. Episode 2. It's the first time that we really get callbacks. Of course, it's the second episode. It's kind of it's good to do callbacks in the second episode. Makes sense. Episode 3. We're getting introduced to Maya a little bit more, and we learn that she lived in Berlin for some time, and there she got really into heavy metal and into that band called Pferdekampf, which translated into English would mean horse fight, which also explains why at the last concert so many horses died, and that's why they're banned from Spotify. And the music that they're listening to, it just reminds me a lot of the German band Rammstein, because, well, they make the same kind of music, and, well, their concerts are also known for being a little weird. It's very interesting. Like, they're doing stuff on stage that you just wouldn't expect it, and I don't know if that's good or bad. Like, sometimes it's a little traumatizing, but I don't know, maybe there's a reference to that. We also get more storyline outside of the house, which I really love because it feels like a single camera show, and it just feels like the story is developing better, the writing is better. I don't know, but it feels better when they're outside of this one place. And we also, so Maya is wearing this hoodie saying Harvard University, not Harvard, then a Harvard. It's written differently. I write it. So I think it's kind of a reference to Harvard. Oh my god, I can't speak today. But you know, the famous university, this for the smart people that everyone's running around with hoodies. Anyways, it's a callback to episode 1 where she's saying, well, you know, my grandparents went to Harvard University, my parents went to Harvard University. Guess where I'm going? Which I really appreciated that attention to detail. Episode 4. There's a really funny bit about cancel culture, which you should just watch. It's really funny. I really loved it. I giggled out loud. It's funny. You should go and watch it. Also, we learned that the Gonzalez family has this game called Game Champ, which reminds me of a lot of Codes of Dunshire from Ben Wyatt from Parks and Rec, because you know, no one is getting Codes of Dunshire fully except for Ben Wyatt, and I feel like that's the same thing here with Game Champ. You know, it's just so complicated. No one outside the Gonzalez family would even understand it. There's also a really good quote from Uncle Rowley, which again, it could be a Jason quote. He died doing what he loved, losing control of a vehicle. It's really funny. You should watch the show. It's really funny. Yeah. Episode 5. The German Spargelfest part is way too accurate. Yeah, but Germans love their Spargel, and they're really into it, and it's terrifying, and they're treating it religiously. So I was thinking maybe there's a German writer on in the writer's room, because we have this reference to Rammstein, and then we have this Spargel part, again, way too accurate. So yeah, that would be interesting to know, but I wouldn't know because I wasn't in the writer's room. Anyways, so Primo is wearing a pink shirt in this episode, and I think it's looking really cool on him. Like, I think it's an interesting fashion choice, but it's looking good on him. I understand why his friends are making fun of him because of it, but I still think that he dared something, and it's not the worst. Like, I've seen worse things than this pink shirt. Especially, I don't know. I feel like it's such a weird shirt that it's so weird that it's cool again. Yeah. Also, there's this really cute part where Primo is trying to flirt with Maya, and his social awkwardness is just something that I could relate a little bit too much to. So that was just beautiful written. There's also at the end where he brings Maya home. There's this really weird first hug moment, which is most of the time going to be there in a relationship, and I had those moments, and it's so beautifully portrayed. It's as awkward as it is romantic and beautiful at the same time. So great job. Another quote that I really loved from Primo is, "That's Uncle Rowley's 'The cops are coming' whistle. We gotta go," from Primo. Which I love because that implies that there are other kind of whistles that Uncle Rowley has to communicate, and that whole thing should have been more of a story throughout the season. Unfortunately, we only got 8 episodes, so that was probably a little hard to tell. But if we get a season 2, I would just really love to see more Uncle Rowley whistles, to communicate with the family. Episode 6. I didn't write down more than fun and sweet, which I think is a really good description of the whole tone of the show. I saw some reviews saying that it was so heartwarming, and well, it is, but I feel heartwarming can also mean it's super cheesy, which it is not. Like, it's funny and you go with the characters, and then suddenly there's this emotional moment that sneaked up to you, and then you're like, oh. And then you're really emotional because you didn't expect that. I mean, you expect that moment, but it doesn't feel fake. It feels good. I love that. I think they did a good job writing that. Episode 7. The first thing that I wrote down is the effort to blur out the penis figures. To understand this, Uncle Mondo, who is kind of more of the spiritual brother, more of the spiritual uncle, is selling wooden penis figures at a local market. and it's art, of course, and they had to blur out all of them, which is ridiculous because it's a wooden dick. Like, it's not, no one's gonna get hurt by that. And we see we see those figures before, but they're just standing around. It's not really anything happening with them, so that's fine. But in this episode, Uncle Rolly comes with him to the market, and he's kind of wagging around with it. Just the effort, it's way too much effort to blur that shit out. But that's, yeah, another thing. I also really loved how they designed the storytelling, how they broke the story, because we're starting off with the C story at home, and then we're dividing that C story, that's dividing inside of the C story into the A, B, and C story, and then at the end it all comes together again as a C story, which is such good writing. Just a moment to appreciate that good of a writing. That's really beautiful, Episode 8. In episode 8, we learn that the stories that have been serialized, that have been going on throughout the season, haven't only been the love story between Maya and Primo going to college. It's also Primo's mother and her dating a bus driver, which is very beautifully told. I really loved the way they did that and how they integrated that into the rest of the story, just with the flashbacks and that stuff. You should watch the show and then you will understand it. I just don't want to spoil you too much. So yeah. I feel like season 8, episode 8 was just a really beautiful episode. It's the perfect finale for the season that they made. It's very emotional and very beautiful. I don't think that it should have been the finale. Like, I would have wanted more episodes. There's the show called Animal Control that I think is on Fox, which they got 16 episodes, which would have been perfect for Primo. That would have worked perfectly. You should have just let them make 16 episodes, and because I would have loved to have more of Uncle Rolly's, I don't know, whistling or something. And also Primo's room, we see that fairly often, and we see that it's full of basketball things, like, tricot shirts and hats, and there's this poster on the wall of a basketball player, and at some point Primo's looking up to that poster and says, "Oh, why couldn't you be my uncle?" And so it would have been super interesting to learn more about why Primo loves basketball that much, and if he maybe plays himself, which I don't think, because we learned that he's not in good shape when he's running. There's the scene where he's running toward Maya, and he's totally out of breath after like 10 meters or something, which is funny. Yeah, so I would have loved to learn more about that. But all in all, they did a good job. What I also wanted to complain about is that there's no proper intro song. Just think about all of the shows that have so many great intros, like Parks and Rec or The Office. Just really great songs, and you watch the show, you see the cold open, and then it just goes into that song, and you're like, oh, we're back at home. It's just a nice thing. And with Primo, it's not really there, which I really miss, because again, Animal Control, a show that came out around the same time, a little earlier, but just a few months, has a super long intro song that's a little too long in my opinion. But I wish the studios would have said, I mean, it's pretty obvious that's like a studio decision. I'm pretty sure Mike Schur and Shea Serrano would have wanted a longer intro song, or even have an intro song. But that's just something that I've been really missing. Now, season 2. I really hope that we're going to get a season 2. But there's a problem, which you might know about, which is the writer's strike. But let me put that differently. The problem isn't the writers striking, it's the studios not giving in to those very reasonable demands. So we can just hope that the studios are going to be reasonable and say, well, you're absolutely right. And I recommend, listening to Mike Schur talking about it on the Dan Labertard show, for example, where he explains that way better than I do. Because, I mean, he was, or I don't know if he is or was, he was on some kind of committee, so he's explaining that just a lot better than I do. thank you for listening to this. This is probably way too long. But well, it was fun. It was fun talking that down. Again, if I didn't make sense at some points, just think to yourself, well, you tried. You tried. You know, and that's all that counts. I hope that you have a wonderful day, and I hope that you go and watch the show, and also uh have a good day. Oh, I said that before, but I'm gonna stop the audio recording now. So yeah, if I'm talking, you're not gonna hear me now. Bye.